I'm Lisa, and this is the work I was made for. Welcome to Open. At Open, we believe that the most valuable conversations that families and business can have are often the ones that they most avoid. Conversations around ownership, decision-making, legacy, and ultimately purpose. Because families in business matter. They not only create wealth, they create opportunities, they impact the communities they're in, and they ultimately shape the next generation. Today, we are joined by a half of an amazing sibling duo, a brother and sister that embody this journey. Suneera Madhani and Sal Ramatullah built a company from the ground up, scaled it to $1 billion valuation, and exited unicorn status, only to turn around and do it again together. So I'm so excited to have right here at the table, Suneera Madhani. Welcome to Open. At Open, we believe that the most valuable conversations that families in business and business leaders can have, are usually the ones that they most avoid. Conversations around decision-making, identity, ownership, and purpose. Because families in business matter. Not only do they create wealth, they create opportunities. They shape societies and communities, and ultimately, they influence the next generation. Today, we are joined by one of two sibling duos that have embodied this journey. Suneera Madhani has built and founded with her brother a company, scaled it to unicorn status, exited, and only to turn around and do the exact same thing once again together. Suneera, thank you for being here and welcome
Lisa,
to Open.
thank you for having me. You were on my podcast several years ago, and I love that this is for full circle. Now that you've got your podcast, I get to be on your podcast. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we were just talking about how beautiful it is where we come from and how that shapes usually how we build, because a lot of how we lead and what we build starts long before we start a business. It usually comes from how we grew up, where we grew up, what was our family like, what was our environment like, what stories did we hear around the dinner table? I'm super curious to know, how did you grow up? What were the conversations around the Madhani's dinner table?
Well, Madhani is my married last name, so it was the Ramatullah household that I grew up in, and I talk about it actually. I actually, there's probably not a single conversation that I have. I'd like to have more conversations that don't talk about my family, but I talk about my family all the time. We grew up in the best loving household. I would want to start there. I grew up in an immigrant household. So we grew up in Dallas, Texas, was primarily where I grew up. I was born in Chicago to two immigrant Pakistani parents. They both immigrated from Pakistan, from Karachi to the United States in the 70s when they were teens, separately. And then they met in Chicago, and I was born in Chicago. Late 70s is when they immigrated. I was born in the 80s, and then we moved to Dallas. And I grew up in Dallas because my parents bought their first business, and they were entrepreneurs out of necessity, not necessarily of what we now have in entrepreneurship, where anyone can be an entrepreneur. Well, when you are an immigrant and you are not educated in this country, you kind of only have two options for the American dream. Like, it's you're working your way up to the top. Like, you're not going to be able to, work in a position where you're able to have the right health insurance and benefits and just the right pay to support your family. No one's going to hire you outside of roles that are only given to immigrants. Or, so if you want that life, and that's the life that you can choose, or you choose entrepreneurship and you build a business, and the business allows you the opportunity to go have your American dream. And so for my parents, their dream was for us to have an education, to build a family in America. They didn't get to have an education. My mom is, firstborn daughter of an English teacher who was a firstborn daughter in Karachi, who came to this country because she wanted her daughters to have opportunity and education and freedom. And so I come from a very strong bloodline of women, and an incredible, even on my paternal side, just a really strong father. And so I grew up with, I think, I didn't know this, but I was getting my MBA like my entire life, watching them work. And I learned everything about, just being a good human. And that's what mattered most. And, sharing and being kind. And everyone has a seat at the table at an immigrant household. There's more than enough for everyone to go around. It takes a village for anything to get done. And so I grew up around, that style of a family. And I also grew up around, working hard and, putting your head down, and that, that is really important. And I watched my parents build from one, small convenience store into 2, into 3, into restaurants, and then just all kinds of businesses. And so I grew up every weekend. My childhood looked so different than my friends. Going to the stores. Working. And doing things not because it was like a different kind of work. It was just part of our life. Like it wasn't this like, oh, I clocked in and out of, it was fun. Like I got to like.
It was fun.
It was fun. Like I wasn't forced in that way. Like my dad taught me how to do payroll. I was like 13 years old. And it was when it was manual. And like he had like, it was still with like, I remember it was like the ADP, and it was like the checkbooks, and I had to balance it. And then, look at the pace, when they used to clock in on the timestamps, and then calculate. And it was like a great math lesson. And I'm like in middle school, and I wasn't signing the check, but I was getting it ready. And then he would double check the stuff. And it was a way for like me to learn how to do math and whatever else. Like that was our bonding, was over
that
stuff.
Was your bonding with
your
parents.
that was like what I grew up around. And I'm so grateful. And I think when I was younger, there's parts of it that now I can look back and, I'm a mother now, and I can see my parents in a different light than probably what I saw them. So there was definitely a lot of like annoyance in a lot of things because being in an immigrant household, sometimes the American way, right? Like we were Americans, but they weren't American. They were like true immigrants. We were first generation. And so I do think that there are things that probably annoyed me so much, and things that they just didn't understand, like as a kid. And so, but pretty normal in like that style of like, for those that can probably relate, that come from an immigrant household. That was kind of a traditional household I grew up in.
Completely relate. So I come from, my grandfather was an immigrant for the Dominican Republic, and I'm an immigrant now. I came into this country, and I know what it feels like when you grow up understanding that education really is kind of the way that you're going to be able to provide for yourself, right? And how important it is. And I also grew up with my parents building a business from like scratch. And so I remember when I was 12, when my dad built his first building, and we were all there for like a year in the middle of the construction, and even seeing that and having conversations, and even kind of being privy to conversations around risk. And at the same time, having conversations around what it felt like when you were building, that a lot of their energy really went into work. And I love that you say that it was fun, because usually as we're growing up, I see often that the relationship you have to work or building a business can be a really positive one, or it could be a really negative one.
Interesting.
It could be that what I feel about the business or my parents or work in general is I only hear the bad. I only hear the stress. I only see the negative side effects of it because I don't get time with my parents, or it feels heavy. Or if when you're incorporated into it, which I'm hearing you say, like I remember I grew up like putting stickers around our medical imaging centers. My parents own medical imaging centers. And so we had to go in and put stickers on the folders when I was like 5. And that was so much fun.
So much fun.
We loved it.
I literally have a memory. I shared it recently on another podcast, was, my dad, like at the convenience store, one of my favorite things to do was he had a sticker gun. So like it was like old school before you had point of sale systems and whatnot that could just like scan prices, that you didn't need that. But you would literally have a little orange sticker on top of, let's say it's like, I remember like canned tomatoes and corn and whatever else was like on a shelf. And I loved just putting the stickers, like the 99 cent, whatever the price was. And I would put the stickers on. And I have a memory of like, they're probably on a Saturday, and like I like want to do the sticker gun. So he's like, okay, go. These are the things that came in. Go stock this shelf, and you had to do that. And I'm like, put the stickers on, and I'm so proud. And he's about to come take a look at it, and he looks at it, and he's like, no, you have to redo that. And I'm like, what? Why? It's done. It's great. I did it. I did a good job. And he's like, no, take a look at it. And he's like, all your stickers, one is here, one is on top, one is in the back, one is like this, one is like this. Not all the cans are facing forward. You put the corn together, you put this tomato together, you put the green beans together. And like he made me take all the stickers
And do them again.
and do the whole shelf like that those 3 rows over again. And it is such a core memory for me. One, it was fun for me to do the stickers, but it also taught me like you have to do things in the right way. And like it wasn't about where it's not just about like the placement of the sticker. It's fine. Like it would have somebody who needed to grab that can of corn would have still grabbed it, but it's about like the level of care that you put into even the smallest task.
Yes.
It matters. And that's like all those little things, that attention that you put is why our store is where everyone comes to. And that matters. And it's how we present ourselves. And it has to be done with care. And so that is like such a core memory of mine. And I see it in how I work and how I lead. And it's all of those little things of this attention to detail that we've carried through in every company that I've built that has made us really successful.
So I'm so curious. You go ahead and grew up in this household where, as immigrant parents, you understand the value of community. You understand the value of hard work. The drive is education, and the drive is doing things well.
Yes.
If you're going to do something, let's do it well. You go ahead and you decide to go to college. You have a finance degree from UF.
Yes.
I was living in Florida. When did you know that you wanted to start building? And specifically, when does this story about I want to build with my brother come into the picture?
Well, I think to me, I feel like the story has been told a million times. But it is, I graduated from University of Florida. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I was super overachiever. And you kind of carry this, like, without knowing it, also this, like, eldest kid, eldest daughter.
Are you the eldest daughter?
I'm the eldest daughter, eldest kid, eldest all across all my family. Like, a lot of, like, this, I'm the first. And so I have to pave the way, and you feel this level of responsibility to be successful because of all the sacrifices your parents did. Like you
felt that.
You felt it. And not that they were trying to put that expectation on, because I will say I also grew up with, like, my parents truly wanted me to be anything I wanted to be. So I wasn't forced into ever doing anything that I didn't want to do. Okay. As long as I did it with excellence, that mattered. Yeah. And as long as I did it, like, as long as I went to school, like education mattered. That was the North Star. So as long as I could check off those two things and do it well, whether I wanted to become a doctor, that's totally fine. Whether I wanted to go in business, totally fine. And I ended up choosing business, and maybe it might have looked different if I chose something they might not have been comfortable with. So I didn't end up choosing the arts or something else. So I don't know what that path could have been, but in my head, I feel like my parents were generally very supportive of what I wanted to do. However, I actually didn't want to become an entrepreneur. And it wasn't because I didn't have the tendencies or because I didn't enjoy entrepreneurship, but it was almost because of the fact that they were entrepreneurs and that they wanted me to become educated so that I could have a successful corporate career and have the 401k and not have to take the work home and, be able to get different kinds of opportunities, because grass is always greener on the other side as well. So because I was the first, I really thought finance was my, like, the biggest path in business that I could take.
The
goal. And so that's why I pursued finance, and I did marketing as well. So I did a double major. I got a minor in leadership, because why not add, like, it was like, I was like all the things.
I'm going to do it all.
Studied abroad. I really crushed college. Like I did a great job all through school. And afterwards, I had lots of opportunities. I had an internship every summer. Like I knew success was going to happen for me. I knew that. My parents knew that. Like, my brother was going to be really successful. He too also did finance. He's 2 years younger than me. And he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He was like ready to, like, not go to college and go start a business right away. But Dad was like, you got to go build your business, but you have to finish college first. Like, you have to finish college. So he too did finance, and we both ended up in different corporate positions. And while I was at corporate, I think the things that make you an entrepreneur, it's just in your DNA. Like, it really is something that, And I'm curious as to this next gen because we're watching entrepreneurship. We're watching entrepreneurs online build entrepreneurship. And it's not a DNA, but it's like what we're seeing. And so maybe that's translating, but that's what I saw. But that was also part of my DNA of how I grew up. Like it wasn't just this thing that I went to class for or I saw online. Like it's just part of who we are.
It was modeled.
It was modeled, and it's part of, like, I literally believe that it was in our DNA. And I think that when you grow up around it, like when you're in corporate, you're still looking at things of like, well, why isn't the attention to detail? Why
So you're
isn't
asking
it?
the questions.
I'm asking the questions and I'm challenging. Why?
Why don't we have an online payment processing that is subscription based?
Why isn't this better? Here's a process. Let me bring up the solution. Like you're like, as an entrepreneur growing up around that style of it, like if you see something, you fix it. You don't walk away from it because you're responsible for it, whatever the thing is. And in corporate, people are willing to see something that's broken and walk away from it. They're like, not my problem, not my job. I don't have to fix it. Doesn't check off my thing. That's the difference between the mindset of people who are working to just get their job done versus the entrepreneur in the room who's like, oh my God, I see the thing that right? It's bothering me. It's not right. Why isn't anybody? Okay, no one's going to do it. I'm going to go fix it. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to go fix the shelf. I'm going to go do the thing. And notice those people even within your organizations, because those are the entrepreneurs inside of these organizations. They just want things to be better. And they're problem solvers. And they're not, it doesn't matter. I don't think entrepreneurship is having that that skill set. It's just that mentality of asking the right questions.
And being curious enough to understand the problem.
And being like, I'm going to go, we got to fix it. Like not being able to sleep because it's broken.
Being able to sleep because it's broken.
Yes. That's the kind of person I am. Like the thing that it's going to keep me up at night. Why isn't somebody solving for it? And that is, I think, what most entrepreneurs who are successful, and we build companies because no one was solving for the thing. Mm-hmm. And then we get frustrated enough and we're like, God, I'm tired of it. I'm going to go solve it. And so what happened for me at Stax, or when it was Fat Merchant, when I started the company, I didn't go start a business. I was working for a payment processor. I saw so much. My parents are small businesses. I saw, how the last person that they wanted to fix problems for was a small business.
The mom and pop shop.
Yes, they didn't want to solve for it. They also didn't want to change when technology is being adopted. Why aren't we giving these small businesses technology? Pricing was an issue. It was a commoditized industry. So payment processing was the industry that I was in. So credit card processing. The fees are crazy, and it's supposed to be like, it was meant to be complex. It's like reading a phone book is how you got your bill of every single card transaction that would ever get run, where it landed in like the interchange table. Was it at 1.5%, 2.5%, 3.5%? It's just super confusing. Why isn't it just simpler? They don't need a bill that's this large. They just want to know at the end of it, like, what does it mean for them? Right. And so even the small businesses were viewing it as such an expensive commodity. When all of those transactions were data, we could use that data and help them grow their business and do more transactions on our platform. We'll make more money if we just help solve for them to see the transparency in it. And so there were so many things that I was seeing in our industry. And because I grew up around small business, I knew this was a huge problem for our business.
Felt it.
Yes. Every single one of those transactions, that was 3.5% of your bottom line. That's right? Like, bite. Yes, like it's literally such a huge part of your margin that goes away to take card transactions. And at this time, this is 2000, like in the 10s, 2010, when I was working for the payment processor. And like technology, like SaaS wasn't a thing. Subscriptions were just coming out. Like there wasn't a lot happening in, like, now I say, like, I run a fintech. Fintech wasn't a word.
Wasn't even a word.
It wasn't even a word. And all I wanted to do was to solve the problem.
This problem.
So I go back to my bosses and I'm like, hey guys, here's what's happening. And I know small business and we're not paying attention to it, but this actually makes up all of our book of business. And if we just create transparent pricing, flat subscription is where the world is moving. I see it in like how I was young. I was 25 years old. I was subscribing to all the software, Spotify, Netflix, like everything in my life as a consumer was in subscription. I didn't even own a small business, but all of the products that we had in the company, Salesforce, whatever else, were in SaaS as well.
Yep.
So I'm like, why isn't anybody doing this in payments? And so what if, crazy idea here, what if we built the first subscription-based payment processor? And it would be a flat monthly subscription, and we'll cover our costs. I'm not saying we're still gonna make our money, but we're gonna be transparent about what we're charging. And we'll give them, these are like the options and the threshold, and
we'll make it easy. We'll make
so
it sexy.
simple.
We're gonna make it
so simple.
Oh yeah.
And I know this is gonna work because guess what? I already talked to my dad and 15 of his friends who are like, sign us up for this. Like, this is game changer. No one's thought of it. I did the research because I was a good student. I'm summa cum laude. Like, I did this stuff. So I didn't come unprepared into this presentation. I knew exactly how it was going to work. I knew exactly the pricing model. I knew every pushback that they would give me. I knew that this was going to be successful. And all I wanted was for my company to implement this. Why? Because
one company.
Just my own company, the company that I was working for. I didn't even try to go build it for myself. That wasn't even a thing that crossed my mind.
Oh, wow.
It didn't cross my mind. I do this presentation and I pretty much get laughed out of that room.
Oh, no.
It's not going to work. Why would we ever do this? Ugh. Why would we be transparent? It's always done like this. We're not just the only ones.
What did that ignite in you?
One, I literally can remember, like, I'm 25 years old, okay? So, like, just so much emotion and, like, I just don't have the experience to handle even rooms like that at that point,
okay,
right? And so all I'm doing, I can't even pay attention to everything my president was like, all of what they were saying, because all I was trying to do, to be honest with you, was like holding back my tears, right? Like, I'm trying to be like, I'm a big girl. Like, I'm here. I got this. I'm going to stand strong in this. And all I was doing, like, was fighting my emotion because I felt so defeated. Like, I just felt so little and not like, I knew this was going to work, but I couldn't figure out how to get, and I knew I did a great job. But they were never going to see it. Like, they were just never going to see it. So I felt just completely just defeated. And I remember holding myself together, saying, okay, thank you so much, shaking my hands, being like, thank you for your time, still thanking them for the opportunity for me to come present to them. And like literally going into like the bathroom and like letting my, like, just sobbing it all out, getting on a plane, heading back home, which was Orlando, and that my meeting was in Houston. That's where our headquarters was. And again, I came home and it was family dinner because that's the family that I grew up around. And my brother happened to be there at the dinner table, and he was working for a really large software company in San Francisco. And he was home for the weekend. That's why, like, I was literally coming home for family dinner because he had just arrived. We're sitting at a round dinner table like this. And my dad's like, how was your meeting? And like, everybody knows what's happening in an immigrant house. Like all day long. Like, the texts are flowing. Everything's happening.
The communication is happening. Yeah. The ideas are being shared. Yeah. They're invested in it.
Yes. Also because if I get on a flight and not text my mom that's taking off and landing, like that's like a family rule. Like, I don't know if other families have that, but it's like taking off, landing. So I'm telling my parents about the meeting, and he's like, well, what happened? And I'm like, this is what happened. And my dad's like, why don't you go start the company?
Build it yourself.
Why don't you? This is amazing. Why don't you go start this? And I'm like, Dad, where do I go find Mr. Visa? Like, how do I go start? Because it wasn't like I'm going to go open up a retail shop or like an online e-commerce store, like literally building a payment network. Right? Like, I knew the idea was great, but it just felt like it was a big barrier to entry, right? It was this huge barrier to entry. How do I go build it? Where do I go do this? And he said something super simple. He goes, well, if your boss has figured it out, then why can't you? And he goes, the thing that I know for sure, and what's the worst that's going to happen? If you're going to fail, like, you can always like go back. You can get your MBA because education was still on the table, right?
Yes.
Like, you can continue to work. But what you can't do is you can't go back and work for them, because that was like a value principle thing, because they don't believe in you. You don't want to be anywhere where somebody doesn't believe in you.
Oh, wow. So I'm hearing first, what a beautiful thing to highlight, that your dad not only encouraged you to go for it, but encouraged you to go for it even with the possibility of failure.
Oh, yes. Yes. And he's like, fail. What's the worst? And then just go get your MBA, right? That's also immigrant family of like, what's the worst?
And you can, because you can always fall back on what you've already built.
Yes. And I also think that there isn't much of like taking risk and the threshold of risk for entrepreneurship you could take a lot of risk at a young age. Like,
Right.
what did I have to, like, I had nothing to lose.
You were 25.
I had no kids. I wasn't married. I didn't have a big mortgage. Like, I had nothing. Like, I literally could move, like, and I did. I moved back into my parents' house. So I actually think it was a ploy for me to, like, move back home. Like, and I just moved back into my parents' house and was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot for 6 months. Sal was across the table and he was like, go work on this thing. I'll help you. Like, we'll do it together. And he was working for the software company at the
Right.
time. So he was like doing both, helping me, and like we just divided and conquered. And it was like one foot in front of the other. But we got this company, like got it launched. And in that first year in business, we did 5 million in payments on our payment platform. And in 10 years, it took us, like it was like 9 years, and we exited. We did 40 billion in payments through our platform in a single year, not total. Like
In 1 year.
In 1 year, 40 billion in payments. We served over 40,000 small businesses on the platform. We were the biggest disruptors in our space. We were the first subscription-based payment processor. It was called Fat Merchant was the initial name of the company. We, raised, venture capital. We scaled the best technology, and we ended up, exiting the company in 2021, north of $1 billion.
And I want to get to what you're doing again.
Yeah, and then we're building again now.
And now you're building again. But I love the fact that you bring this back into that family dinner table, because so much of entrepreneurship, you were asking me, 95% of the world's wealth and businesses are family owned. You usually think that they're these public companies and big companies, but the reality is, and you saw the value there, that small entrepreneurship and family-based entrepreneurship is really what funds the world. But there is a complexity when you build with business. Have you ever heard, like, don't go into business with your family members? It's really hard, because the reality is that once you're a family and you're in business, it's really hard to separate roles, ownership, leadership, and most importantly, harness relationships that are going to stand the test of pressure, of growth, and of work.
Yeah.
And you chose that deliberately. I want to hear about, as you're building together with your brother Sal, what do you think are the major lessons that allowed you guys to be able to build together?
Yeah, so many. Oh my God, so many. And we were also growing. Like, I feel like I gave, like, we were in our 20s building the company. So we're also figuring ourselves out, right? Like, it's also different when you're like, know who you are and like what you're good at. And like when you're in your 20s, like you're figuring it out too. So you add layers of just being like, I want to say young. Yeah. Like,
identity
searching. I don't want to say
searching.
Immature, but just inexperienced.
Right.
Right. So I think like what we got through is like extra commendable at our ages of what we built.
What were some of those things?
But what it was number one is the first thing that we did was divide and conquer. And that was the best thing that we decided to do.
What does that mean for you?
He was really great at and I'm a finance major. He was a finance major, but finance, operations, and sales. Like Sal, there's nobody better in like thinking of that infrastructure, building out like what we needed to go do. Like, so he took that on. Marketing, branding, vision, like the product. Like I knew the customer. And I'll tell you, it's different. I'll share with you as we've evolved and we grew even in this next company that we're building. But at the time, product was mine because I was in the industry. I was the one that was closest to the customer. So I already had the 3 years of experience in serving these customers. So product had to be mine. Operations had to be his, right? And so not that we couldn't flex across, right? And in the next company, actually, product is his, and we'll switch back and forth on it. So you can play all the different roles, but it's deciding to say in the moment,
right?
What does the company need? And who is the best man for the job or woman for the job?
Who is the best man or woman for the job?
Yes.
You separated yourself from the role that you were playing.
Who's the best man for that job?
How did you make decisions together?
And then trusting that person. And that's hard to do because when you are type A's, okay, entrepreneurs, right? We're actually literally are both Virgos, grew up exactly the same, share the same DNA. Right? It's like different than building with your husband or like we literally share the same blood and mind and value system of how we grew up, right? We could still have different experiences.
Would you say that helped or challenged?
I think that it definitely helped because I think that, and truly, like, there is nobody in the world that has the most amount of life that I've experienced and shared is with my brother. And even in my second phase, we've been building companies now. So even post, usually you get, you go to college and you like separate out from your family, and then
Right.
your new family becomes the most amount of time that you spend with, or your new experiences. But even in my chapter post college, 15 years now, we've been working together. I see him every day in the
Day
office.
by day.
It's all of the experiences are still lived together. So it's a really unique thing, and it's a superpower, because I do think that what makes really great co-founders is trust and values. Like, that's it. It's not skill sets. It's trust. It's knowing that the other person has got you, that they say that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. You trust in them to deliver that.
Right.
And this is the most important in any partnership, is communication. You can figure out when things aren't going well, you can communicate. Well, guess what? As siblings, we kind of didn't have a choice. You can't leave, right? You can leave. Like,
You're going to see him at the dinner
at
table.
the end of the day, like, you can't leave your sibling your whole life. Okay. So you learn how to communicate. Whether you like it or not, you make up. Whether you like it or not, you make up, right? So and I haven't thought about it like this since you've asked me, but that was a superpower, because we can fight so quick. And that happens still to this day.
And repair really quickly.
But we can repair super fast. Quickly.
That's
super
interesting.
quick. Super quick as a repair. Because there's trust and benefit of the doubt, because there's love. Like, I know even if he like says something, or like I'm annoyed about something and it's in the moment,
right?
The amount of like trust and love and stuff that's been there for so many years, it's like, yeah, I just know that he's like in this moment, and I can like quickly repair that fast. And so I think that the number one thing was dividing and conquering was really important.
Right.
And then even if I didn't like the way that he did that, he didn't like the way that I did that, was learning to stay out of each other's lane.
Say more.
So if we've decided that this is my way, this is what I'm owning. So let's say it's something as simple as like in marketing, whatever, the website or the press release or whatever it needs to be. I'm sure he can add words to it that would make it better. And he's like, I really want to talk about it like this. And he could perfect my things. I'm sure that when he's building out, I'm a finance major, the AOP, I could be like, no, I think that this should be like this and this should be like that, right? Like two little examples here. But instead of going into, we can make suggestions. Like, it's like, here's what's done, here's what it is. And maybe there's an opportunity for me to offer my suggestions before it's done, but it's not mine to do. And I got to trust that he's got it. And that's his sausage making. I'm not going to stand over him to how he's making the sausage, as long as it's done and I trust the outcome. So we're worried about outcomes and not the details here. And same with me here. My job is to get the brand out. My job is to get the website out. My job is to get this press release out. So sure, can offer the suggestions, but it's my job to deliver the outcome.
Right.
And that's the thing that we've been able to really do well. And I think this applies to all co-founders, siblings or not.
Right.
Team members, ELT, executive leadership teams, partnerships. It's just delivering. It's like the outcomes. Be responsible for the outcomes. Don't worry about the details in the sausage making.
Because it's ultimately not about the people. It's about the role you're fulfilling in that particular way. And you highlight something really important, because you say that the fact that you are aligned, you've been aligned in values, in how you make decisions, you feel like, it's natural. It was a superpower. And it is a superpower. The number one reason because there's wealth dispersion is not because the companies are not doing well. It's not because of market impact. The number one reason we see that there's a wealth dispersion between one generation or another in a family-owned enterprise is just because there's a lack of alignment between owners.
Yeah.
When those owners are siblings, you can have either great success stories in which we learn to communicate. We learn to be able to manage the complexity of having a personal relationship and having a business relationship, or it could be the opposite. A lot of sibling teams manifest different things that we grew up with. It could be jealousy. It could be competitiveness. It could be the fact that I don't like who you marry. It could be the fact that my identity is tied up in my ego. And there could be, and not even that. And there are often times where even though I truly trust and love my sibling, we might have a different envision.
Yeah.
And a different in values. I'm curious, is there any way, at any moment in time where you guys were misaligned as you grew this company, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever perfect. And I think that there's always going to be like, it's hard. Like, I don't want to make it sound like it was super easy. How we dealt with disagreements
Yeah.
or in misalignment was we have an incredible third co-founder.
Oh, tell us more.
Okay. And our third co-founder is definitely one that it's not about like taking sides, but there is somebody else at the table. It's not just my word against yours or my opinion against yours. There's somebody else that matters. And so like when we had met Jacques, he was our CTO, so he was the technology co-founder of the business. But quickly we learned we needed him up not just in building the technology, but to sit at the table with us for that exact reason. Because he could bring that differentiating opinion or bring his perspective when things might not be in alignment or we're feeling like we're off on alignment. We can always go back and, Jacques and it's not about playing kumbaya or a peacemaker. It's not that. It's literally that third opinion, or it's like, okay, we can have, and healthy conflict is great.
Yes.
So I think where people are like afraid is like, I think we also grew up in a way that like, it might not be perfect, but like I saw my parents fight. I saw the conversations, but I saw them also make up. I saw also we weren't shielded from hard conversations, whether it was with business or family or things like that. So I grew up around knowing that conflict's going to be there, right? And then we can resolve for it. And so I do think that healthy conflict is welcome. Otherwise, we're going to have boring products, or we're going to have one person's, it's not a dictatorship.
Oh, we're not going to have authentic relationships.
Or even like what we're building is just going to suck because then it's like one person's opinion about it.
Right.
That's not going to work.
And when you mention having a third founder, it usually means that you professionalize ownership. It means that, okay, we get to think that as owners, this is the ownership conversation that we're having.
Yes.
And there's different spaces for leadership. There's different spaces for families. But when we have other owners in the room that we're accountable to, it really helps separate the issues.
It does.
And it gives that kind of clarity that you're looking for whenever we are making ownership decisions. It really is not about the individual. It's what's the vision, what we're achieving, and what it is that we need to take a look at to be able to make the best decision for this company.
Absolutely. And if you don't have that third, because it's like, well, how do you do that without it? We had an executive coach as well, right? So we had an executive coach that would literally, it's almost like I had a place to vent and to share, like, this is how I feel, right? It's just and it actually hurts the most when it's the closest to you.
It does.
So like it's easier to deal with like any other person in my life in business. The emotion is never the same. But if my brother says it in this way, or he doesn't appreciate this, or he said something in a meeting, like it's harder.
It's harder.
It's harder because I value his opinion. Like that one matters, right? And so I think that just like in relationship, and just in relationships, like in therapy, in your personal relationships, you need business therapy, right? In co-founders. And that goes whether you're blood related or not, but it hits the most that's why ownership, there's so many business partnerships that break up.
Yeah.
Right? Because you start, it's all great in the beginning, and then you can't learn how to go from conflict to that resolution, to that understanding. And there needs to be that level of there is that space to be able to share and communicate your feelings too, because these are feelings. Business is personal. It's personal.
Every single decision we make is an emotional decision.
Yes.
It's a human decision.
It's a human decision.
Even if it's business.
So that was also really helpful to, as you're growing and scaling, because growth, you're right, what you said in the beginning, like it becomes harder, right? When you're succeeding and even failing, it's hard. Like it's high stress, it's high emotion, it's high all the things. And at the same time, I think that like what's really wonderful is the fact that at the end of the day, like I would so rather do it with partners. Like entrepreneurship is so hard. And like the best thing that I have is like, two brothers that are also like, it matters to them just as much as it matters to me. So even if we're failing, we're going through it together. Even if something is hard, it's nice to be able to be in a collective for the feelings high and low. Also, when you're winning, you want to celebrate together too, And so it was an amazing journey. We are so proud of what we built. And
you achieved an amazing milestone.
Yes.
Before the age of 30.
I was past 30, 35 or 34 when we hit unicorn.
I would love to know. I mean, after achieving that milestone and the definition of success for you, after, what surprised you most?
You know, I wish it was as simple as like, done the thing, check it off, success achieved.
Did you feel fulfilled?
No, you don't. Because going back to how I grew up, I guess it all goes back to it. There's more problems to solve. There's more things wrong in the industry. And it wasn't ever about the money. So there's different ways you can measure success, and sure, financial success is one of them. I'm super proud of what we built. We built an incredible company. We had amazing financial outcomes for ourselves, but also for the 400 employees that we had to. Like, we had an incredible, for the shareholders, for what we did in our city, like for as a brown woman, right? Like, there's so many things that I'm so proud of that we did, and those are all things that we should celebrate in success. And I think that I'm trying to learn this in my in this chapter, right? Because now I'm like going into my I'm in my late 30s now, going into my 40s. I think for me, success it's different than it looked like in my 20s.
How?
I
What
think
does success look like for you now?
Well, before it was about chasing that milestone, like
Right.
chasing it. And it was
Right.
like, what's the next? Okay, we did this. We did 100 million. How do we get to 2? How do we get to 300? How do we get to 4? Like, it was this like, this is what it should look like. Now, success for me looks so, I mean, I've also became a mother along the way of that journey. Success for me looks like having time with my family. Like, that's the number one thing that I want, is to be able to live an awesome life of what I've built. I want to enjoy all the things that I built. I don't want to I want to solve problems. I want to use my mind, and I want to create amazing companies. Like, I love business. That's not going to shift from me. And I don't have to like work 24/7 in order to achieve that.
It's how we do it.
Yeah, it's how we do it.
It's the difference.
Yes.
It's not the what, it's the how.
It's the how. And now I'm allowing myself, like, no, I can do it differently. I don't have to do it. And I'm also building from experience this time, right? Because when you're doing it for the first time, everything is new. It's harder. It is so much harder to do it the first time. It is easier to do it again because you have the experience to go back. You're like, oh, that worked. That didn't work. I know what's coming around the corner, right? And so now I get to build from experience. And so, building again, choosing to build with my brother again, that was a choice, right? That was a choice to go build again. And this time he's CEO. It's his vision. I'm here as a supporting co-founder and an awesome evangelist of the company. And again, dividing and conquering of what start like the same things again of like what the company needs, who's the best man for the job for it right now, putting ego aside, right? Like, that's also really hard I think just as humans.
Yes, especially in families.
Yeah.
You say first time around you were CEO, second time around Sal is CEO. That's an enormous feat, for a lot of families that are sibling partnerships. Who gets the top spot is often riddled with identity, with thinking that if you don't have that role, that means something for you as an individual or as a person, as opposed to what you've said over and over again in this conversation, who's just the best person in this role. How do you, as an owner manager, as a founder manager, as a founder leader, make that distinction so well?
I think for me, in like the first company, Sal he was president. So it was like, we've always been co-CEO is like what it is. But at the end of the day, you're right. There was still a title, right? And I don't know I think in the first, because it was my idea maybe, and I had first gotten it started. I think that's how it like naturally transpired. Also because I'm the older sibling, it was like, and it was a little bit of that too. But I think something that we did really well that I'm sure you see when you speak to like your families that are going through challenges and whatnot, is we put money aside. So even though Sal had come in, it was like full time later. Okay. When it was time for like, actually we're going through like building the equity component of the company, we're 50-50 partners. Okay. So we came in and I could have I think, I do think that our story could have been different if I held on to more equity than he did and I had a different financial outcome. Like, we always made the same money, and we always had the same amount of equity. And
that means that as 50-50 partners, you had to come together to make ownership decisions.
yes, and whatever decision that he was going to make, I knew was coming from that same lens. So we took it off the table because it would still come from the best decision of the company.
We have the same skin in the game.
Yeah, we have the same skin in the game. I actually had 2% more because I was 2 years older. And that was
into the business.
Into the business. And then at this company, it's exactly the same opposite on the company. And so we kind of like kept that tradition. But it's the same ownership. And I will say that something that, you know, I don't think we keep tabs. And so like in like, you're not like everything evens out. So it's not like there's going to be seasons of like where he might be working harder. Like I remember going through like motherhood and just like he's now like he just had I'm an auntie now finally. I've got a nephew and I became a new auntie with a brand new niece, and so I'm like so excited for this chapter for him. But I was going through that chapter while I was building too, and we never kept tabs of like here's like vacation or this or that. And so I think that was something that like we just always like we knew everything is just going to even out. Like we always put in our best effort all the time. That was the expectation because that was the expectation as a family. Yeah. And so I do think that I was speaking to a friend last week at dinner and he was actually asking me about some of this stuff. He has a partner in the business and he was saying like he's struggling because he started keeping tabs of when his partner comes into the office. Oh, wow. I'm like, stop doing that. Yeah. That's causing you have an issue because you feel like you're working more than he is. And now you're starting to keep tabs. You're putting it under the rug, and that's going to build so much resentment. You're going to have a problem in your partnership. Instead, go talk to your partner and say, hey, what's up? I've been noticing, and I feel like I'm working more. I feel like I have these responsibilities. Right. I feel like, is something going on for you? Mm-hmm. Right? Or like, am I feeling like this? Am I crazy? Is this a story in my head? And I just want you to know I'm starting to notice it and it's driving me crazy. And I'm doing things like watching when I don't want to do that. Like, what's happening? And I want to talk about this. Right. And just being super honest with your partner.
I am so glad you bring this up because, you know, a lot of the conversations, and this podcast really is about that open, is the premise that so many of the things that can allow a business to grow and a family to remain happy, united, comes down to the conversations that we avoid, the conversations that we don't want to have. And then we masquerade them by a shareholder agreement, a KPI, a Gripple boardroom, some other sense that or tool that you want to bring in, avoiding the conversations. You know, I often have to go into sibling partnerships that have either inherited a small business and grown that business together. And for them, the conversations that we didn't have at the right time around accountability, around roles, around who's responsible for what, around, well, maybe we do have a different growth, risk, liquidity, or profit profile. Or around the fact that, I'm starting to resent the fact that I feel like I'm giving a lot more to this business than my brother or than my sister. And at the end, we're all shareholders in the same degree. So I want to have the conversation on how can I feel compensated in the best way. Yeah. But often we hide from those conversations and then we try to masquerade them through different lenses and through different tools in business. And at the end of the day, if we can be able to be open and honest and have the right conversation, we're actually addressing that's going to be able to grow our businesses. Absolutely. You say that was easy in your case of your brother and sister. Yeah. In the case of your brother. And I also hear one thing that you mentioned at first, and it was like, well, number one, we both had the same vision. We both were working towards the same goal. And there was a lot of love. You said that there was a lot of love. Yeah. And I don't say that lightly because, you know, often we say like, oh, family, I love my family. Love means very different things. And love in business requires you to be able to have very humble courage. Humble courage to be able to have the conversations that require clarity, that require organization, and that sometimes are difficult to have. If you look back on building.
I'm like soaking this all in. I love your choice of words, by the way. I love that. I love that choice of word, humble courage. That's beautiful.
You have to have humble courage because there is no relationship that matters more probably to you or, for example, to me as well than having a great relationship with my siblings. Yeah. Like I remember us sitting down and saying, after my father's accident that I told you about, there is no universe in which we will ever fight because of money. There is no universe that would happen. And that's easy to say. What's difficult is in your relationship to be able to have the conversations around, like, you know what? I don't agree that we should do this. Or in my particular case, I thinking that this is the right way we should go. Or, you know what? I don't want to be an owner anymore. I want to be bought out. Or, you know what? I really think that we should hire an outside CEO. Or, you know what? I really think that if I'm leading the business and I'm creating value for all our stakeholders, I should have a compensation that looks different.
Yeah.
These are
all fair.
Those are all fair conversations. Yeah. But when you're a family in business, those conversations can come at a price. They come at a price sometimes of relationships. And we truly believe that the more families can access those conversations and access the importance of information, that they're able to navigate that in a way.
That's the truth.
That can ultimately preserve relationships.
I think that what happens where it doesn't work, it truly is resentment. Like that is where it is, where you haven't talked about it. So it's like you're feeling it, you're not discussing it, and whatever you're feeling manifests outside. So like whatever is happening inside is coming out outside, whether you think it or not. And that's causing that tension. And that's when you add on, resentment is not something that happens like one time. So it's like a build up of it. So every time that I've seen it fail or when things don't go right, and this is across like teams and not just in family partnerships, and I don't know, coming from an immigrant, like a community, we saw a lot of relationships. That's the one thing, I don't know if I love it, but I'm like a keeper of relationships. I have so many relationships. And you watch it and it's because we can't communicate. We can't communicate our feelings. And that's the humble courage that you're discussing. And then coming from a place of like, you know, also when you're discussing and disclosing your humble courage, to have the courage to also listen to the other side and to also take a look and say, hey, actually, maybe what am I doing to contribute to this problem too?
Yeah.
And that is something that I think our executive coach, she would do this exercise with us that would say, what did I do to create a solution to the problem, like, or what I didn't do to create a solution. So I'm like, I could have done this. Like, okay, so I have this issue. I'm having this issue, and I feel like Well, here's how I want to solve it. But like, I know I'll take accountability too, to say I didn't do this thing, and I could have brought it up sooner, or I could have done this differently.
Yeah.
So I too will take accountability. And your mutual goal is, even when you're addressing a problem, is, I don't know, it's going back to the DNA. I think we're just solution-oriented people, okay? So there are people who just want to pick a fight and be right, okay? People just want to be right. That's ego, okay? And I'm not saying I don't have an ego or I don't want to be right. Who doesn't want to be right? We all want to be right. But I think there's like some underlying value piece that I think not just that I have, but I think great leaders have it, is this ability to say, like, what is this? Like, how do we come together to find the solution?
And what is the big picture vision?
Yes.
Always coming back to the vision. And I also hear from your story, one thing that every single family that I work with embraces is that get the right tools. So get the right tools, having an executive coach, having a therapist, investing in communication is an essential piece of how you're going to be able to nurture relationships with your co-founders, co-owners. So definitely.
I want to add one more thing as well, is I think the self-work is so important.
Tell me more.
I mean, so if we're not doing the work to grow ourselves, right? Like that's the most important. So if the best thing that I can do is work, like I think there's a beautiful, is it a Rumi quote? Is it who does it? It's the best thing that I can do for you is to work on me.
Yeah.
Right? It's the best thing that I can do is to work on me. And I think that is super important. And the more that you can practice, you know, being your best self and your highest leader and showing up with empathy and showing up with and listening and understanding, like that is how we move through all the things. Like that's the best. And that to me is in business, how I show up as a wife as well, right? Yeah. The more at peace I am, the better I show up at home.
As a mom,
like everything, as a friend, as a daughter, all the things is when I'm doing my best work. When I feel my best inside, I show up my best outside.
Yeah. One of the things that is most valuable whenever we start a process with any type of sibling partnerships or families and founders is how well do you know yourself? So from very basic things like understanding your enneagram, your human design, what's your communication style, what's your others. And so I love whenever we're on a table and I see 1 year out or 6 months in, a brother turn to a sister and say, what I'm hearing you say is
Uh-huh.
this. I just want to validate that. And so we are practicing things that are ultimately going to have a great impact on our business, but most importantly, are going to have a great impact on our
Yeah.
relationships. So, yeah.
I love those. I have so many of those little tools those quips that we used to say at work all the time. We still
Yes.
do it. It's like the story in my head is,
The story that I'm telling myself at
story in my
this
head.
moment is,
story in my head is like one we use all the time, all the time.
I want to ask you about your relationship to wealth. Part of what I truly believe in is that wealth is just a vehicle for impact, for goodness. We are here, and I believe, and a lot of the families that I serve believe in servant leadership. We are here to be stewards of wealth and to use that wealth in order to create better opportunities, not only for our families, but also for our environments. As you reach this milestone and your exit, how has your relationship to wealth changed?
That's a really tough question because I think I'm still figuring that out. One, I believe in the same thing, like that money has never felt. I also grew up, even though we were like upper middle class. I didn't grow up poor. I think sometimes people just want to assume that
Because you're immigrant,
because I'm
you're poor.
immigrant and because just it's not a rags to riches story. Like I grew up in a really comfortable household. We didn't I wasn't, in luxury all the time, but we grew up very comfortable, upper middle class. But my relationship to money, the way that my parents always were, was is more than enough. Right. And like money is easy to make. Like that was never, I think that's
Money is
it's
easy to make.
It's
So
really easy.
abundance mentality.
Super abundant. Super
Mm.
abundant. But one of the things that also money is easy to spend too, right? And that's also how I grew up too, is like
As well?
was like live your life, like I don't fully value that of like, savings wasn't a concept. It was like go live, go do the thing. You want the thing, you earn the thing, go get the thing. My parents were all about that. We took vacations. I think it was a very different way because I've seen other immigrant like families in our community and how they grew up.
Come from
And
scarcity mentality.
Scarcity mindset. We did not have that. It was like, go spend, go have fun, go live your life, like enjoy the moment. Experiences mattered, like music mattered,
Failure's
arts mattered.
okay.
Failure's okay. Just I'm lucky as like to get with a family like that. And I do think, but hard work is important, right? So it's not like it's just going to come to you. But money is easy. You're smart enough to make money. Like money is going to come. And so I do believe my relationship to money has been very comfortable my whole life in relationship to money. And I mean, my entire podcast of CEO School is like nothing bad happens when women make more money, because I believe that women don't have that mindset around money. And money isn't bad and money isn't dirty, and it's a really good vehicle and it can do so much impact. And look at what I've been able to do. And I think money in the hands of women is also really important because we are the most philanthropic and the most impactful in so many ways. And so I do believe that my relationship to money has always been really good and abundant. And there's also this like new shift though of that's something that my parents didn't. I don't have anybody that's ever emulated the kind of success that I've had. So that feels scary. And it's not scarce, but it's like, okay, now what? Like, do I just sit and relax now that I have it? Like now I don't know. Like I don't have examples. Like when you were saying, like when we were sitting down prior to this interview, I was like, there's just so many families that just hire you because they have so much money and they're like protector generation. It's true. I didn't grow up around friends like that. I didn't know people who had generational wealth, right? And so I think what's scary to me about money is I'm thinking about my daughters now. And I know I turned out okay because I watched my parents work really, really hard. And I know my daughters are going to turn out okay because we're working really, really hard. But there is this like, I'm just being, like courageous right now, like humbly courageous to share this. I don't know. That's like my biggest fear around money is life too comfortable? When is it like for my kids? And those are all these questions that I don't know how to navigate which I don't know if there's perfect answers for, but I also don't have the people, like, I think, like, it's all new.
The blueprint.
I don't have the blueprint. And that is something that's, like, something new and interesting.
There's this great book called Breaking the Myth of the Silver Spoon, which is the concept that because you grew up in privilege means that you are privileged and henceforth you are entitled. When the data shows that what makes the difference in whether an individual feels fulfilled and successful in their own terms, right, has nothing to do with the dollars or the zeros in which they grew up with. It really is more about the self-preservation, the self-identity, the self-values that they are able to not only be told, but see and modeled. And we're in the same boat. I haven't met any mom or dad that doesn't want the best for their children. Yeah. And that also we have to understand that they're going to grow up in a very different environment than we grew up in. Like, I didn't grow up the way my parents grew up, right? And my kids are not growing up in the way I grew up. And so all this self-doubt is how much is too much, how much might lead into entitlement. I often find myself trying to manufacture hardships for them. And then I'm like, should I be manufacturing hardships? What am I teaching them about money? Am I leaning into scarcity? Am I leaning into abundance? Because I've had both, right? I come from a dad with an abundance mentality and a mom from a scarcity mentality. And I think that kind of shaped me.
Yeah.
And I'm always questioning, what are the lessons that I want them to have? How can I teach entrepreneurship to my kids because I want them to be able? How can I also embrace very different areas? Just as you, I grew up with a family where we were told to do absolutely anything that's aligned with our passion and our vision. Yet arts and pursuing something in arts was automatically off the table. It was like, what's your version of like lawyer or doctor or finance that you're going to pursue? And a lot of what the conversations that we have as we're preparing the next generation, if there's like one thing that I see that is a common thread, is that the next generation will be able to find their own path and their own identity if the right values for them are modeled. Like, what do we model the right values? So as you think about your girls, what conversations around career and life or money do you have today with them?
Oh my God, so many.
Oh, really?
So many. I do feel like my kids, I'm trying to do what my parents did for me. Like, I feel like that was my example. So we have dinner every night. We talk about our days. I don't gatekeep when things are hard. I share those things. I ask for their opinion. Mm-hmm. Like, that I think is something so important for children to know, that their voice matters. Like, that is something I feel like I've never, ever, never, like, I never felt that I couldn't say what was on my mind. I had
at
to hide
the dinner
it.
table.
Yeah, I would be heard. And so I think that did translate into my life.
I will be heard.
I will be heard. Someone's going to listen. My voice matters.
Wow.
My opinion matters.
Yeah.
And even if I'm young, it doesn't, even though I don't have all of the things, I can ask the right questions. I was taught how to ask the right questions. And so I'm thinking about those things for my,
beautiful.
It really was like, it literally is like, I'm not just, I really am so grateful. And that's why I talk about my family so much. I literally did grow up with just the most spectacular parents. And they weren't perfect in their marriage and life and other things, but as parents, super, like, they just knew what they were doing. And because it came from love. It really came from love. And so I'm trying to love on my kids, emulate the same things, emulate hard work, right? Things I think kids learn from behavior. And so it's little things. Like, it's not little, I tore my ACL in a ski accident. And I did not want to ski. I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus. It was like a full-on bad ski accident. It took me 6 months of physical therapy, everything. And every year we go on the ski trip. And it's really important to my husband because we didn't grow up around skiing. And he really wants that. This is something my husband's super sports. And so we go every year on the ski trip. And the next year, literally it was coming up in 8 months. It was so quick. And I didn't want to ski. And I got up and I did the thing. And because I want my girls to know, you're going to fall. You're going to get hurt. It's going to be scary. Then you're going to whatever. You got to get back up. I can't not do that because I never want her to know that it's okay for her to like make an excuse. Like, okay, this bad thing happened. I can't do it again.
I can't get up.
I can't get up. And so I literally did not, what's an example of something that and I'm proud of myself, right? Like, but it wasn't for me. Like truly at this point in my life,
You're like,
I could choose,
I am done with
I want to go
skiing.
sit in the ski lodge. I want to go to the spa. I don't want to get back on the mountain. I don't want to. And I did. And that was a parenting choice that I made.
Because what I heard from you is, and this is a beautiful lesson, that failing, getting hurt is okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You can build again. You can get up again. You can
Yes.
recover. You can repair.
Oh God, I hope I'm doing it right, because that's I hope I'm doing. I think we all can just hope we're doing it right. But I think that it's about modeling it.
It's about modeling. I mean, there is nothing that you can say or write down in an estate plan or write down in a will that will shape them more than what you live every single day. So that's really the secret sauce, I would say. I mean, it's what you see, what you learn from that day to day that they're going to absorb. And more than anything, what does it feel like?
Yeah.
What does it feel like for them? Being able to make mistakes, being able to ask questions, being able to be heard, I think, super valuable.
Yeah.
That is the kind of processes that we try to put in place when we go into a multi-generational family that has to create better relationships.
I have a question for you. How does, like, I think that some of the things that you see, even in probably whether you have multi-generation or not, you can implement those things now, like as you're starting your company. Like,
Absolutely.
what are some things that you would advise people who are in, like, as CEOs, like, what would you advise them that are starting companies that we could be implementing now to ensure that we don't wait till the third generation to go fix it?
Absolutely.
Like, what would you do now?
And I'll pull from exactly the kind of things that you've shared today. You've highlighted the importance of having very clear role definition when you were starting out your Stax. And that's really important, because when you understand role definition, you separate the fact that this is a position from this is a person.
Mm-hmm.
And what sometimes in families and business, that distinction isn't very, very clear, because we have not have clarity first on what is the vision. The vision of a business is to be run as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Run your business like a business and run your family like a family. And that means that you get to inherently treat them both very differently, right? We often say that it's about being a socialist at home and a capitalist at the business. And that really is the way you approach sometimes. And you have to understand the dilemma of managing both at the same time. Another clear example is having a separate space for ownership. It's not the same to work in a business than to be an owner of a business.
Yeah.
And even if you're an owner-operator, you understand very clearly, because you highlighted the fact that you had an outside investor, you had a third founder, the difference between ownership and the difference between management. And that's a very clear distinction that if you want to go multi-generational, you have to understand. There's an ownership space, there's a management space, and there's a family space. And they are intertwined, and they all have their checks and balances. A lot of first-generation companies that don't go public or don't scale like you scaled don't understand the concept of a board, right? I know you understand the concept of a board. You understand the concept of being accountable to a governance body that is there to not only support and guide, but also supervise, right? So having the right spaces, having the right business structure, and having the right role definition is essential. We often go in and we help even first-generation businesses have a very clear map of what their growth, risk, profit, and liquidity looks like. Because you and Sal might have had absolute alignment on that. How you grow, the level of risk, your expectation around liquidity, your expectation of profits, because you shared that you are so alike, right? In many ways. But when you don't have that level of alignment in ownership, it makes it really hard to be able to make CapEx decisions and be able to grow a business. The second part that I would say, for anybody that's building, is that investing in communication, which is another thing that you highlight, is foundational. I mean, anybody that goes and does an MBA at Harvard is going to be enamored with Peter Drucker. And my favorite quote from him is that if you don't understand people, you don't understand business. So if there's one thing that you get to invest in, if you're looking for a multi-generational, and that might mean only one or two, business venture, invest in understanding people. Start with yourself. And then start with communication with others.
Yeah.
Because the data is there. The number one reason why these amazing family ventures fail is because they don't achieve the level of communication that you and Sal had.
Yeah.
And continue to have.
And can continue to work on it too, right? Because even as you grow, what you're right is like vision can be different. And it's roles. It's all about that roles and alignment of that, I think, is a really important part of what you said.
Another thing that I think is interesting in your mindset as an entrepreneur is that I don't see your identity tied in your business, which means that you can make the right decision that might be exiting. You know, a lot of family businesses think that selling their family business is the definition of failure. If I couldn't keep it in the hands of the family until, I don't know, 5th generation, 6th generation, it means it failed. Or I've been brought up. My identity is that I'm going to be the next leader of this business. And that gives you a very narrow perspective, number one, of your own identity and your own definition of success, and 2, of business. Yeah. Because selling a family business is not failure, but selling for the wrong reasons is. And so also having a very clear sense of what it is, who you are, what you're meant to achieve in this world, and having that identity not necessarily being tied in the business. And this doesn't mean that we're not proud. And this doesn't mean that for some families, their mandate is to be steward and continue to own and continue to protect the business for the next generation. But their identity isn't the business. It's something bigger than that.
I think that's really interesting for sure. And I think that at the end of the day, it is personal to who, like, it's all personal. Business is personal. And so I think that what you said is really interesting from an identity perspective. I do want to say, however, I think that as a first gen to build a business, right? I think that it was because of identity, because I wanted to prove something, right? That it even became like there was such a huge chip on our shoulders to go prove it and to go build it. And like when I do make, and I think for like round 2, it becomes less. Yes. Not that there isn't something to prove, but I do think that, like now I feel like I can come, and maybe it's also just experience in business that I can come from a less ego-filled decision-making mentality. Like I can be like, okay, we know how it's going to go. Here's cool. Like you want to go do this, even within like the company, the like all of the things. I do think that I am less tied like emotionally, right? That is for sure there. But I also think it's because I put all that energy into building the first emotion. Not that this one's not emotional. I don't want this to fail. It is my identity still. Like that's not going to not be there. But I do think it comes from experience too, to like let that go, and more of the inner work. And that comes from maturity and experience and doing the work to now be here to be like, okay, but it still matters, And I think it is different on how you're framing it for the clients that you serve, because I can see in the next 3 gens, I don't know what that's going to look like for my kids and their grandkids. And to me, when I think about what I want for my kids, I don't know, like, of course I want them to be great stewards of our capital, and I want to set them up for success. And I want to be the first to build we're building generational wealth for our children and grandchildren. And that's really cool. That's not a playbook that I know of. We grew up with. And at the same time, like, I don't have I think that like for Worth, like we're building our second company right now. Like we're going to exit. Like I don't view it as like, I want to hand this down and like my kids are going to run it, until it's not a secret family tea recipe that I'm so tied to. I'm building software. Software is going to change. And so I think because we've chosen software, and I don't know about the companies that you serve, but I don't know if there's like a correlation there. Technology is going to evolve. If they're running it forever, that means like we're dead. Like we're already dead. Or like what technology is going to grow into. So I do think that I view business in this life cycle element of it. What I want them to do, truthfully, I do say, you asked me about careers, and I do say something to my kids is that whatever they can do, whatever they want to do, as long as they own it. So
As long as they own it. And what does
yes,
that mean?
to
That
be
they
the
own the decision?
no, that they are the entrepreneur. So I do
Mm.
share that. So if they want to, like, I think there was my daughter's 7, but when she was 5, she wanted to be a vet, right? So like she wanted to, she loved horses and dogs, and she still does. And she's like, once she wants to be an artist now, and like whatever she wants to be, just own the studio, own the gallery,
build.
yes. So like do your passion, but then own it. Is like be the owner, be the CEO of whatever you do.
And it's really interesting because I do see that the long-term vision after founder generation, usually second and third generation, it really is about having that mindset that the assets are there to act as a platform for many different things. So ironically, once you pass the third generation, you don't have that attachment that we are just the operating business, but it's more about how do we deploy capital? How do we create new lines of ventures? How do we create new businesses? Because we understand that in 50 years, things are going to shift.
Yeah.
And so it's a very aligned with, a long-term goal.
It's really cool. I think it's so awesome what you're doing. And this has been really fun.
Thank you. So at Open, we have a tradition that we end with a rapid fire round of questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. So what is one habit that we might be surprised to find in your day-to-day?
One habit you might be surprised. I'm pretty open about on social of all my habits. What is something that I do that people would be surprised? I don't eat breakfast.
You don't eat breakfast?
I don't eat, and that's not eat breakfast for champions. Yeah. I just don't eat breakfast. I don't eat breakfast. I drink coffee until it's like time for lunch.
I'm the same boat, so I feel ya. What's one belief you had at 25 that you no longer believe?
That's a hard. These aren't rapid. These are thoughtful. These are not rapid. What is one belief I had at 25 that I no longer have? I think that I don't belong. I belong.
As Oprah just said, you belong in that room because God already put you there.
I love that.
What's one book that genuinely changed the way you think?
Also a really tough one. I recently read Die with Zero, and I thought it was a really incredible just book around money philosophy. And I do feel like it's kind of the way that my dad lived as well, which is not with your generational wealth passed down. It is about handing things still to your children, but also just enjoying your life in full experience. I think it's a really great money book.
It is a great book.
Yeah.
And yes, we've had a lot of conversations around those. What is one hard truth that you've had to accept about yourself?
One hard truth I've had to accept about myself is that it's okay to want more.
It's okay to want more.
Yes.
One thing you carry with you all the time.
What is one thing that I carry with me is my mind. It's always going, it's always on, it's always thinking. I don't know if that's a great thing, but it's always on.
Your mind's always on.
It's always on.
And if you can wrap one Suneera value in a bow and hand it to your girls, which would it be?
That's so easy. It's tattooed on my arm. It's everything that our company was built off of. It's our family value. It's one team. So it's one team, one dream. It's always team above self. Yeah.
Team above self.
Yeah.
I see that in your story. Thank you. Thank you, Suneera. This was wonderful.
This was so great. Thanks for having me today.
This was such a powerful conversation. Suneera really, truly is a trailblazer. You can find more about her. She has her own podcast, which I've been on, at The CEO School, or follow her on Instagram. And for more conversations like this, please subscribe and follow.